Hello, everyone. Welcome to the February 2nd, 19 meeting. Josh and I are slowly getting better at doing our pre-triage, but we still spend too much time chatting, so we didn't get all the way through, but we had some good ideas. Among other things, we have created a Lang team action items hackmd that will persist across meetings for us to track action items, both for clarity and because then we can see if they are done. Along those notes, I think a lot of these didn't happen, including some of mine. So we can go over them briefly in a second, but I've linked it from here. So people who are here, please put your names and let's get started. Okay, so tomorrow, we're going to do something new for the design meeting tomorrow. The plan is to change our process, as Josh is taking notes here. The first meeting of every month is going to be a planning meeting for the remainder of the month, where we'll go over the open issues and assign meetings. So please join us. The other thing we're going to start doing is using half of that meeting to review active projects. And what I meant to do in the beginning of this week, but I forgot to do, but I'll do after the meeting, is to go ping everybody who has an active project and encourage them to leave updates for that purpose. But if you are a shepherd of an active project and you have something to say, now's a good time. That clear to everyone? Okay, cool. And on that note, let me write down a quick note to remind myself. Actually, I'll just put that in the action items list. Okay. 2021-0202. Nico to adjust calendar for design meeting and ping folks who lead projects. Okay, let's move on. Yeah, I think what we'll probably wind up doing is Josh and I have a whole bunch of random policy proposals that we want to put forward. I'll try to get that in a doc. I don't know if we'll end up discussing them tomorrow or if we'll schedule a meeting to talk about them, but we'll figure it out. All right. I'm going to skip over the project board. If anyone has any urgent, because we're going to review it tomorrow, unless anyone has any urgent comments that they would like to raise now.
As a process point, do we want to post an issue for the policy proposals so that we can do an FCP?
Yes. Well, let's...
Not necessarily right this instant. I'm saying, should we do that so that everybody can sign off?
I think that would be appropriate. Yeah, we can discuss that tomorrow. Let's talk about it after. But that does make sense. One other thing I want everyone to know, Boats has stepped back from the Lang team for a while. They may come back in the future, but just for time reasons. So I have removed them from the list along with other teams as well. You can ping me privately if you want to talk about it. So okay, we don't have any nominated RFCs.
Should we have a topic about trying to get new members?
You mean like a meeting topic?
Sometime. Is there a plan at some point to discuss that topic?
It's definitely on my mind. I'd be happy to discuss it. Yeah, let's file.
That actually seems like it might be a great design meeting topic. Just let's brainstorm how to get new people on board.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay.
Yeah.
With a procedural note that if we decide to discuss specific people we want to bring on board, that most likely should not be in a recorded meeting.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I have a lot of thoughts, although I've probably expressed them to all of you from time to time. But I definitely think we need to put some energy into recruitment. So, okay, we got some p-high issues, deny after forbid breaks build, and we've discussed these before, forbid warnings. There is actually a pending PR by me that fixes these problems. I'll just briefly say what it does. It's not exactly what we said in the meeting before because I realized that didn't make sense. What it does is if you have a forbid on a lint group and then you allow it or something else, it issues a future compatibility warning, but allows the allow to continue. So the reasoning for this is eventually that future compatibility warning will become an error. And so you would get the error you expect, but respecting the allow means that existing derives that actually trigger the lint that is forbidden, which used to build, will continue to build, basically, because otherwise we would have the problem where you would be getting new errors that you weren't getting before. So that's what the PR does, and I think we're expecting to land it very soon. Any notes or concerns? I'll put some notes on that.
The only concern I can imagine is like the people who are, actually using forbid unsafe. And, this, if that's a group of some kind,
it doesn't
right?
affect them because Unsafe is not a group.
It's not any kind of group. Okay, then that's fine.
Yeah. The other thing I will say about this lint is that this lint is exempted from warnings, from being a member of the warnings group, because otherwise forbid warnings would then trigger the lint, which would then be an error, which would not work. Also, the warnings group is very weird, I've discovered. And as far as I can tell, it actually means lints that are warnings right now, as opposed to lints that are warnings
by default.
Yes.
Interesting.
Which, it's handled a very special case in the compiler. But one side effect of that, which I did not try to fix, is if you do something like, oh, I don't remember my exact example. I think if you like forbid unused and then like allow warnings or something, that doesn't cause an error because at that point unused is not a warning anymore. It's now a deny, so the allow has no effect. Something like that. It's weird. But
Yeah.
I didn't touch that.
Sounds like something that may not have been designed properly. Yeah.
I think it was a unintended design choice.
Yeah, so I guess if you did forbid allow to get your forbid unsafe code, it wouldn't be doing what you wanted, but forbid allow is just really strange.
Well, it's not, and as Nico said, it shouldn't be allowed. That this won't change that. That'll still be, because unsafe isn't part of any group, to our knowledge.
Right. I don't believe it has any effect on unsafe. I'll double check, and if so, I'll exempt unsafe from that set.
Yeah.
But I will point out that like if it is in a group, then the forbid unsafe was having no effect at all before, so you're strictly improved now.
If we at some point introduce new lint groups or rather turn some existing lint into a lint group, we may want to exempt that from this mechanism so that it does not regress and suddenly start allowing rather than forbidding allows.
Yeah. Yes, I think what I would
only if we have that happen.
Right. I would say that I also think we can move fairly swiftly to make this a hard error, and we need to get better at closing out future compatibility warnings and having like a fixed schedule to follow up on them. It's kind of a compiler team problem, but kind of not.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The derive thing in particular, we should be able to resolve separately. And once we do that, we really could move faster here.
Yeah.
I think I agree with that.
But
Agreed. If it doesn't break derive, I think we could do this in the edition at the latest.
I'll just put a note to your effect though, Josh. If we convert a lint into a group, it should be exempted to avoid, and we should move swiftly to make this a hard error as there wasn't much breakage. Okay, all right, let's move on. Any final comments? I don't think there are any action items here, except for Nico finishing that PR, which is already on my line. And in fact, I did the fix, but I didn't push it. Okay, so moving quickly, OR patterns. We've talked about this a million times. Scott, you had an action item to look at the stabilization report.
I have not done that
I
action
did
item.
not think you had done that. Okay, that's fine. You
Where
still have
is
that
that
action item.
stabilization report? Is that in 79278 now?
It's in the PR, which I don't know what the
It
number
looks like
is.
someone has a HackMD that has a work in progress stabilization report.
That's
Is
the
that
one.
one?
That's what.
I
That's the
see.
one.
Okay, then yeah, it's in the PR. Yes, I can provide a link.
If you find the action item here and like make it have links, that would be appreciated. I can't even find it in this list. Am I missing something? Oh, here it is.
No, it's there.
Yeah.
It's there. I just linked it in the document.
Speaking of other action items, we skipped over deref patterns, which has a charter open.
Oh,
I
my
wasn't
bad. You're right.
in
I
Lang
skipped
Team
right over it.
78.
My bad. My bad.
It does
Yeah,
have a
that was
charter
one of your
now.
action items, was to follow up on that. Ah, okay.
Yeah, Lang Team 78 is open. With the charter they created for it. I'm not sure what. I think that was the right thing that we're supposed to do.
I think that was, yeah. Did you look at the charter? Did anyone? I haven't, obviously.
I didn't actually look at the charter.
Okay, so why don't we take an
looking
action
at it right
item
now.
for
Connor and Adriel on Zulip. It seems.
So
I'm not
action-
exactly sure what we expect to be in the charter.
Yeah, I don't know either.
It
So
seems like from a
For what
quick
it's
skim
worth-
that it's plausible, but
Why don't we put it on the agenda for tomorrow's meta design meeting?
good thinking.
You can either decide it there if it's small, or kick it to a full design meeting if it's large.
sounds
All
good.
right. I'm gonna put, Josh, you and I have the job of reviewing the charter and adding to design meeting agenda.
Sounds good. Good. We'll do it in our post meeting.
Yep. Okay, thanks, Scott, for bringing that up. And I removed the corresponding action item for you.
Good.
So, okay, lint for unused borrow. Yep.
I was going to propose that we jump to const error because that one's been open for a while and Ralph sort of pinged on it a couple times by now. 80394.
All right, let's do it. Works for me. You want to talk?
This is Ralph's grand plan of making const less painful. This is the first step on changing errors in const to just be errors and not be warnings, because his grand plan is to simplify the compiler substantially by not having to have everything that can possibly consume a const need to deal with the possibility that that const fails. So this step is just saying it's a future incompatibility lint to have constants that cannot be evaluated. Is my understanding, at least.
Okay, why don't we take, it's not that much thread. Why don't we take 2 minutes to read over the thread?
Yeah, I just read through it, and it looks like the goal is just if you overflow in a const or divide by 0 in a const or similar, and expect that, then that is going to produce a warning rather than not.
It's always been a warning. Well, it's been a warning since they started emitting a warning for it. Historically, you could index into const arrays by indexes that weren't in bounds, and that was just sort of fine as long as no one used it, which was a little odd. This is moving from it being a lint warn to a future incompatibility lint warn.
So according to Mark's summary, is it wrong? It says this PR implements the first step towards failure by moving this lint to a FCW. It is already denied by default.
It is cool.
According to his comment.
It is very weird to have a const that you can't actually even use. So
Yeah, this seems completely reasonable.
Okay, I think we should do this.
The only
Let's start
scenario
an
I can imagine where there would be an issue here is if someone was using this mechanism to implement some manner of static assert, like have a constant that would break, but don't reference it unless your assertion fails or something like that. But I'm not aware of any crates doing that.
Yeah, all this does is add a link to the reference issue to an already existing error. So it's really pretty much zero impact. I was gonna say let's do a FCP, but I don't see the point. Can we just
Mark already
post?
suggested we don't need the FCP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's just post. Can we just take an action item from somebody to post a
I'll do
comment
it.
saying go for it? Okay, great. You're gonna do it live or should I record that? I'll record it.
I'm doing it right now. Feel free to record it, but it'll be done.
I'll record it so we have the satisfaction of checking it off later.
Excellent.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Scott. And is there any other items we want to pull out? No, that's not it. Okay, let's just go back to the top then. So it looks like there's a pending action item on this. I'm going to skip over it. I'll do that action item this week. C string lifetime warning incorrectly fires 78691. So if you take a look, you'll see that I forget what was the story about this. There's an there's a lint that was moved over from Clippy about C strings. It has a false warning in the case where it claims something is UB, which actually isn't. And specifically, I think what's going on is, yeah, I'll show you. If you look at this example,
for what it's worth, it's not claiming that it's undefined behavior. It's claiming that it's going to dereference a pointer that's been freed, and it's just not taking into account the rule for temporaries last through the end of the statement. This was intended to catch cases where you pass off a C string pointer to something that then holds on to it, or cases where you create that temporary in one statement and then pass it to something in another. This is the one case where it's potentially safe. Whether we want to allow that or lint on it as poor practice or what is up to us.
So this is one of the things that I filed. My meta thing here is this sounds like a library lint, and I wish we could say that it's the library's team's responsibility to decide on this. But other than that, I find Ditolne's comment convincing that it's not wrong. We shouldn't have false positives in Rust C, even if it's confusing.
Well, there's an interesting question about false positives here. When we originally discussed this, there were two use cases we talked about. One was let some stir equal C string new ... as pointer, and then use that some stir. And that is a true positive because it gets made invalid at the end of the statement. The other is, what if you are passing one of these, exactly like this statement, off to something that expects to continue to maintain a reference to that string and will be upset if that string does not outlive the call? That is a question of the semantics of the function you're calling. Obviously, that may be a false positive depending on the nature of the statement. I'm not sure that's our business to catch. I just want to point it out as a possibility that this may or may not be a false positive.
Right,
You can't definitively say it's wrong.
Like the Gecko profiler register thread function, for example, you could imagine maybe it starts a thread that holds on to that pointer, right? That would be invalid, but that's kind of just true whenever you use raw pointers. Like it's a bit,
yeah.
If you start going that far, it's going to be hard to decide where to draw the line. Yeah, I don't know. I think one thing I will note, I have two questions, or I guess I have another question, which is what is the correct way to write this code? What is the binding it to a variable is sort of what we recommend?
Well, if you just bind the as pointer to a variable, then it doesn't work at all, of course.
No, I mean the C string.
I think what's written there is correct, so long as the function being called doesn't capture the pointer.
Right.
Sure, but in terms of
No,
like
that's not what I'm asking.
what this lint is saying, like what do they expect people to rewrite their code to be?
That's what I'm asking. What is the, like, in my mind, whenever we have a lint, there should be something the user should have written that would make the lint not fire. Like if
So
the only way to
probably
make the lint not
wants-
fire is to put an allow, that's kind of bad.
It probably
The
wants the C
expected
string new to
rewrite-
be in its own let.
Yes. The expected rewrite is let s equals C string new foo possibly dot unwrap, and then s dot as pointer in the call.
So my assertion then is that that would not, like if gecko profiler register thread actually started another thread, that rewrite wouldn't solve the problem, right?
True.
And I don't know, it's not obvious, even if it, like it might solve
Yeah,
the
we
problem.
couldn't catch that. You're right.
So I feel like we're no more likely to,
Which
it's
means
only
the
mildly
temporary
more
thing-
likely to be correct is my point.
Which means that we're not doing any good with this lint, and it's really only catching the case where you assign as pointer to a temporary and then use it, which will never work.
Right.
That's a good argument. Then we should allow for this when it is a temporary that's just being passed to something and not being stored till later.
I think, yeah, so I think like if we lint on the case of let x equals this, that's really good because that's like guaranteed wrong, right?
Yeah.
That's my opinion. Yeah, I think we should otherwise not lint, or, you know,
Well,
something
there's
analogous to
one
this.
case there's a case we should test to make sure that we still lint on, because we also shouldn't allow things like this. Let's make sure that when we catch cases of this temporary lint lasts till the end of the statement and don't lint on them for the purposes of calling a function, that we don't stop linting on this case where the pointer does outlive.
Yeah, it's going to be a little tricky. We can certainly do that, and since it's a lint, there's no reason we can't be ad hoc for stuff like enum variants. What
Effectively, if you put it in a data structure.
yeah, like a struct or something, there would be, well, I'm pondering cases like, you know, this.
You might foo some, which is valid.
You might, right, you might do this, and maybe like where foo is the identity function, let's say. I think that you just can't handle, and that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
So
Well, it's sort of
basically,
about whether it consumes or stores the pointer, and I don't think you can really know that for basically anything.
no, you can't
right?
really, I think that's right. It's exactly about that. And I think the answer is we can know when it stores in some cases, right? Like,
Yeah, we're trying to lint on known bad cases in a pattern that we often see people get wrong.
these
I
cases
just mean
can all
putting it
lint.
into a vec or something is not going to go well either, and
No, there's some limits.
that's going to be super hard to detect.
I wouldn't worry about vec. We're doing our best here, not like.
Yeah. So basically, tuple constructors and struct constructors.
Yep, that would be my rule. These are all ADTs, right? Various ADT constructors.
Right. Vec.push would be wrong, but there's an infinite number of ways to write unsafe code wrong.
Yeah.
Sounds right to me. Okay, I'm happy with that resolution. Who wants to write it up and post it?
I can do it.
Okay, I will put a comment. Josh to comment on with the resolution to limit lint to the cases where pointer is stored in a variable and hence known to be wrong. Okay, great. So let's go on then. Next issue, turn derive. Oh, this is in FCP, nothing else to say. Unsafe op in unsafe function lint. I will, so people can open. I'm sorry, I'm trying not to jump our focus too much, but the this is the lint which says you shouldn't put in, or rather this lint wants you to put unsafe blocks inside functions that are declared unsafe if they do unsafe things. This lint is, this PR proposes to stabilize the lint. However, the lint remains allowed by default. I think we should do this.
Concur.
There has been some controversy about whether to change the lint to warn by default. I don't think we need to discuss that particular question right now.
Right. I don't think there's any harm in stabilizing a mechanism people can use to define this style in their code, and we can decide later if we believe that's the correct style.
Yep.
This also gives people the ability to start rewriting examples to show what they'd look like with this.
Yep.
And then we can see, oh, that's too horrible. We should get rid of this.
Okay, so I will, somebody should.
I can FCP that.
The only thing that's missed, there's no, I would like to see a stabilization report. Can you request one of those?
Sure. I mean, I'm not sure how much it's going to save it.
I don't care. The form is important. I don't think there's that much that needs to be said, but I think, for example, I would like to see it. It could be really short, but I wouldn't mind having this particular thing.
Can you post asking for it then?
Sure, Nico will do it.
I would just say, yeah, fine, FCP merge.
I think it makes sense to FCP merge and have a concern for let's have a stabilization report so that we can start gathering consensus.
That's fine. I can do that. I agree that in this case, I'm happy to have it move forward. Okie dokie, great. Never type is the only type that is unsafe to raw deref. I don't know that we need to keep this nominated, although
there was there's this and the one that follows, I think, that are related tickets. I agree, we probably don't need to keep it nominated. The only thing I did want to bring up is that we had a debate some number of meetings ago about like whether this was analogous to initialization checking and like, you know, should this be control flow sensitive or not? And I, at that meeting, managed to convince Scott that it's okay that initialization checking be control flow sensitive, while this unsafe checking should be based on lexical scopes and not control flow dependent. And Ralph disagrees.
Oh.
So Ralph thinks they should be on the same footing. I don't know what to do with that.
Where's the comment?
It's on the it's on 80059, which I think is the one that follows this. Yeah, it's in the next issue down. I treat this as like coupled things. This issue.
Yeah, they're pretty coupled. I feel like it would be rather strange. Well, yeah, I don't know. Ralph,
I don't know.
Disagree. I guess the question is, do we disagree? I don't.
Does it need to be resolved for this issue?
It does.
No,
I think in a yeah.
I mean, can we agree that like initialization checking fundamentally can't be based on lexical scopes? Like it is a control flow analysis, right? At least
I agree with that. Yes. What's happening here is, well, but this is not 100% about control flow. That is true. First of all, okay. I agree that it is a control flow based analysis. So, all right. So observation, right? Initialization is a control flow based, is inherently a control flow based analysis, which implies like there's probably some cases, where, I don't know, you could imagine the starfoo is dead code. It's hard to say whether it's analyzed or, right, whether it's initialized or not, right? And there's sort of an inherent, that's what you're saying, right, Felix?
Yeah, or whether we care that's initialized. Yes, it's hard to say whether we care that's initialized or not, but yes.
It's also hard to say whether it actually is, right? Like in the compiler, there's no, at least when you look at the control flow graph, there's like no connection between the starfoo and the code that came before it. We
Right.
could make false edges or something to
Right.
make the
It's
connection.
just another, it's a strange point. Yeah, in the control flow graph. Yes.
In any case, we sort of can't. That's all like stable now, and it would be it'd be a big deal to change it, I think.
That's right.
So the exact example that Ralph was giving, however, doesn't involve any dead code in particular, and has to do with has specifically to do.
Well, it kind of does.
Yeah, it kind of does. Not in the same way though, right? The deal is that like this expression will never execute, I guess, is your point. We're never going to do this load. And yeah, okay. But by the same token, you could say that unsafe, yeah. I guess we've already set the precedent though that we do care about unsafe in dead code.
Right.
We went all out of our way to do this.
Yeah. You put a lot of extra work to make it work in match discriminants, right?
Yeah. I think we can just say this has been established as precedent, and
yeah, I feel comfortable with it.
It's not up for argument, I think is fair to say. Yeah,
I mean, right here. So
okay, that's all I wanted to bring up.
Good. All right, let's do it.
Is there anything you want to bring up from your MCP on your compiler MCP here, Nico?
I don't remember.
I don't think so. There was, Ralph raised the point, which I don't think was really sort of neither here nor there, which was that in fact, like the certain things that we're doing now in unsafe code checking probably ought to be a hard error. I'm actually not sure if I agree with that, but I had to review. It had to do with accessing fields from pack structs.
Things. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And
the conclusion was this sort of required to be UB, but I actually think that's only true if they're not aligned. Like, I don't know, if you have a struct, like, not an error, right? I don't know. There are some cases where it's not going to be UB, so, but that was what Ralph raised, but that's kind of that's true, but that doesn't affect the observation that it would be better to implement this check. That's just about what the check does, kind of, but.
Cool. And it looks like that's seconded, so it's on its way to happening.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, was Ralph's point there that you would need to do it on the mirror then?
No, his point was, his point was that I had used that as an example of why we did things on the mirror, and which I think is, if I remember, that was like the reason we ported it to mirror in the first place. And his point was like, that's also not a good reason to do it on mirror because we probably should just make that a hard error anyway.
Okay, I see now.
So sort of.
But what's your opinion now, though? Should it be unsafe or should it be a hard error?
Unsafe, right? I think it should be unsafe personally.
Which means we still need to do unsafe checking on the mirror, or are we going to try to still? We're going to try to do it earlier.
The advantage of the mirror, the hair has the same, or whatever we call it now, has the same advantage.
Okay, fine, never mind.
Yeah. Okay. Next, promote 2018 warn lints to deny in Rust 2021. Oh, this is a good one. So, right, we're starting to ramp up addition planning, which I wanted to just bring up anyway. For those of you who aren't following, if you want to be following, there's a Zulip stream, and one of the items that I had expected to do was to take the various lints that we kind of never got around to really putting into place and put them into place. In particular, we had, these are the lints. We had the expectation, or at least I did, that as part of the 2018 edition, these would start to become hard deprecated, but we didn't do that. So the idea was to move to that in 2021. And I wanted to give people a chance to say, no, we shouldn't do that for any one of these lints.
So I think I do think the summary from last time was we wanted these broken out.
Yeah, I wonder if we just forgot to unnominate this.
Yeah.
What do you mean by we want? Oh, I see. This, I don't think I was here. Separate PRs.
So you weren't, yeah. The proposal was we should have a separate PR for turning each lint to deny by default so that we can very quickly FCP each one of those. And that way, anything that we all agree on, we check our boxes on and it's done. And anything that there's an issue with, we can discuss there and it doesn't block the other items. This is based off of lessons learned from the let's uplift 50 clippy lints to the language.
Okay. That sounds good. And it sounds like there's an action item that Ryan agreed to do that work. And I'm going to add that to our.
Already started doing so.
Started doing it, yeah.
I'm going to add that to my action item list so we can pester Ryan about it. And I see he started, yes.
I'll nominate one of them. Should I nominate the ones that he started filing?
Please do.
Or do we want to do those as a design meeting?
I say nominate them. The design meeting may or may not be controversial. There's one other point I should add. I believe that if we're gonna, we might want to discuss this, but I think that the policy I would expect is that the lints are worn by default on all prior editions and deny in the new one. So
all prior?
That's what I would do. Yeah. We can discuss that if we don't feel good about it, but that's like the general rule I think we should do. Like if we're deprecating something, let's deprecate it.
I would agree, except that there are some cases where the warnings are about something that was changed in 2018, and then we're deprecating the old 2015 way so that we can make it permanently switched in 2021. Things like bare trait objects are a good example. In 2015, I'm not sure we should be warning about bare trait objects because people using 2015 still at this point don't expect that.
But those people can use DIN, right? I guess I would say if there's a case where they can't fix it by doing the better thing.
I mean, part of the reason we tied this to an addition was to avoid forcing them to. We could have potentially
I'm not forcing them, right? I'm
transition.
just coercing them. They don't. There's still just a warning.
Perhaps you're transmuting them.
I mean, my point being, like, yeah, I want to. I think my reasoning is I want people A, to move to new editions, but B, I want all code, no matter of edition, to look as similar as possible. So, like, I feel okay about coercing people in older editions to move to newer patterns, as long as they have those things available. If it's a case where like they literally can't write that code, that's a different story. But
I would personally disagree with that, if only because I personally know some people who resent the dying trait change and would like to not have to do it until they upgrade to the new edition.
They don't have
I
to
think
do
it's
it.
reason.
They just have to put allow, right?
I get that. I'm just
and they can write a
suggesting
comment about how angry they are about a mean old. No, I hear you. I hear you.
I'm just
Uh,
suggesting the other advantage of this would be, suppose you actually have some 2015 code and you're upgrading it to Rust 2027, then you may not want to get all the warnings at once. You might want to get a set of warnings, then switch to 2018, then get a new set of warnings, then switch to 2021, and that way you can handle it incrementally.
But if you had been getting them all the way through, you'd already have done all the work, right?
Potentially. It's a reasonable
or
question.
Or you'd have silenced them, in which case they're silenced and you can uncomment them one by one.
Fair point.
It sounds like this is controversial, so I think we should. I don't actually know what I think is best, but
I'm not actually sure either. I think it's worth exploring.
yeah. So it sounds like we want to have more discussion. Should we warn on these lints in prior editions? I do think there's a certain amount of some disagreement on this point. I guess it'd be good if I had been taking notes about the major points, which I didn't do. Why don't we make an action item, Nico, to write up pros cons?
I think there's a sort of meta point as well about whether we expect people to jump from 2015 to 2077 in one go, or if they'd go from sort of one to the next.
I mean, frankly, if in 2024 people still have code that's marked as 2015, there's probably a very, well, let me rephrase that. There's probably a reason for it. I started to say a very good reason. But in that case, if they still have such code, they may not be intending to upgrade it at all, which is an even better reason why they may not want those warnings.
But yeah, I still stand by, well, it's okay. I stand by.
Understood.
They get warnings. They don't have to act on them. But yeah, that's all right. Let's keep moving. Relax ADT unsizing requirements. What's the story with this? I see. Okay. I see. There's some kind of write-up at the bottom that was requested and is now added by LCNR. It says, today you implement unsize if the tail field depends on at least one type or cons parameter.
This is sort of a recursive unsizing.
It's removing this one specific rule. Okay, I think I understand. So, sort of. Yeah, so we had this rule. So, right. The case is we want to allow things like trying to remember now how to describe this. You have like struct foo of t, right? And if you had an arc of foo of u832 or something, we want to permit you to unsize this like so. And the idea is arc of t can be coerced to arc of u if sort of t unsize or something. I forget the exact setup.
Yeah, you need to have that. You need to have that question mark bound in the struct definition, right?
Also that, I mean, also arc tested defined with question mark. Oh, do you mean here?
I mean, up in the first line we struck foo, yeah.
Yeah. You're right. Right. So there's basically this trait that means there's one trait, coerce unsized, which is can a pointer be coerced to another pointer, like from a thin to fat pointer kind of. And then that references the unsized trait, which is can a pointer to this thing be coerced, kind of. It's probably T unsized U, it's got to be. So, right, and the current rule says that this type parameter must only be used in the final field. And the reason for that was if you had something like this, and you change like foo2 from to U8, you're affecting both fields, and that's kind of surprising. And that wouldn't really work, right? But what LCNR is pointing out is that just because the type parameter appears there doesn't necessarily cause a problem. If so, their example would be I guess I'll just copy and paste their actual example instead of making a different version. You have a struct here.
I think the tail thing you described is still in his proposed rule. It's just about other type parameters showing up as well.
It's there in a different way, right? Because now it's okay for the T to show up in this last field, because when you look at B, that T is not in the final field, kind of. Right?
Yeah.
Which makes sense. I'm not convinced that, I don't know whether the write-up that LCNR did actually includes all the conditions or if there's something missing. Okay, I see. The tail field depends on at least one type or cons parameter, at least one, not used in any other field. I see. Okay. So I think we should just do this. This seems fine.
Logistically, is there some reason that this isn't going in unstable?
It would be, it's not super hard. It could be done unstable, but you'd have to have a feature gate. Be one of those kind of changes that's like, you put in a feature gate and then the code behaves differently. It's not like you get the feature gate.
Yeah.
Because it does seem like, I don't know. I guess the reason I can see not to do that is no one's ever going to turn that. There's not going to be any, like, realistically, how much testing is going to get done. I don't know. Maybe some. I wouldn't object to saying let's feature gate it and, just on principle. But
principle was the only reason I brought it up. I don't have a particularly strong reason that it really ought to be.
I'm guessing from scanning this PR that we should be able to emit some sort of diagnostic saying, like, suggesting the relative feature gate or not. Is that not actually? Like,
I guess we could. I guess we could, right? Because we could try it with both algorithms, and then when you emit the error, you check if the new algorithm would have allowed it, and then you say try this feature gate.
I see. That wasn't what I was considering. I was thinking more like the original code, the places where it's doing return error unimplemented, would we be able to just emit a diagnostic in those points in the control flow, but then continue?
You might be able to do it. They might be able to do it. I think I take back what I said. I think you could find the cases where it's not covered, and whether you do it by having two copies or whether of the algorithm, or whether you do it by like a tri-state thing, not just true false, but like.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe we should encourage that. Why don't we propose it?
I mean, is this blocking anything?
I think this is just like LCNR read the code and was like, this could be more precise.
Yeah, if it's not blocking any features, then I would push back and say let's try to feature gate this.
Yeah, because it might be some unexpected. I mean, the principle is sound that we might realize that there's a problem, right? It gives us that much more time to think about it. But all right, who wants to write that?
I can write it.
Yay. All right, we have 4 more minutes. 6 more minutes.
I think we
Let's
can
do-
successfully do 809:20.
Great. All right, let's try that.
I was just digging through
809:20,
this.
everyone. Okay,
It
you have
looks,
some.
yeah, it looks like the primary issue here is validating more cases where attributes are placed in places where they aren't valid and not currently checked. So this in particular is catching things like putting inline on a constant or putting used on a struct field. And these are not things that work or have any effect, but they were being silently ignored. So this validates and makes sure that that now gives an error. That is a breaking change because some crate could be using these and they were being ignored. So this went through a crater run and there were a grand total of 3 crates that had an issue where they used on a struct field and that had no effect, but now it's an error. So the question falls to us of, is this an acceptable breaking change in order to catch things that don't have any effect?
We have had many examples like this, and we generally have gone forward with them.
Right. We could theoretically turn this into a deny by default lint, but that still would break people. So there's no real way we could avoid that. We could make it a warn by default lint, and then people would get warnings but still be able to compile, but I'm not sure that's important.
Yeah, which 3 crates are they?
3 root crates,
check it.
19 async Guzuta registry API. Oh no, root results.
XTP01 alpha 4
OLM-RS.
and various demos. I think we should just do it. Oh no, these are
Yeah,
fixed.
this seems
Sorry, I
reasonable.
was looking at the fixed results, which is also weird. Why are there any if they're fixed? But okay.
3 root crates, 19 regressed crates in total.
I don't understand. Okay. Async trait 0. So it affected some versions of async trait, and it affected OLM-RS 1.0. Is that how I'm supposed to read this report? I think it is. But I guess those are older versions of async trait.
This is actually, one of these is the
No,
latest version of
that's the
async
latest
trait.
version. So this seems notable. I don't think we can just break that.
We should at the very least poke async trait and say, hey, could you stop that?
It's interesting that async trait is used in 2000 crates.
Yeah, it's a little suspicious. It makes me wonder, like that's the only registry API 015 is the only dependency.
I don't think it didn't actually break async trait. Both failures look like they're seg faults because like probably ran out of memory or something.
Yeah, so it's not actually this. This is a false warning.
Yeah,
I think you're right.
I think the breakage is acceptable. Personally, I am somewhat of the opinion that we shouldn't do this in general and should instead prefer to, for example, if we actually want to break people, to do so on an addition boundary where we can just delete the thing.
Yeah,
Migration lit. But I think given our current policy is basically to just accept these, I don't see any reason not to do that in this case.
that's what I think too.
For completeness, we could
both
do
halves
it.
of that, I think.
Sure.
Go on.
We could do a deny by default lint, and then cap lints would mean that it won't break dependencies, but at the same time, I'm not sure that that's worthwhile in this case. And yes, I agree. I'm looking at these and they do appear to be spurious. Some of them.
Yeah, OLM-RS is real,
Yes, it is.
and there is the latest version. I would be inclined to at least ping the author.
Some of these non-root regressions are not actually because of the change either. Like I opened the twin prime round one and it doesn't, and it's a name resolution failure, not anything to do with the actual change involved.
Why don't we at least, did anyone CC the author at least? We should do that for sure. Oh, what the hell? Oh, they're not on GitHub or something. What's wrong with this person? Sorry. Oh, they are on GitHub. JHYE. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Looking at this some more, I should have just read David TWCO's comment that there's actually only 4 things that this affects.
Yeah, so I think we should go forward, but we should ping these people and try to get them to at least have a new version of this crate available so that someone can upgrade.
Yep. And conveniently, it's a fix that works on everything. So as a super minor revision in Semver, it's not going to hurt anybody.
I'm writing a comment, which I probably, so I guess there's, all right, so conclusion. Move forward, we may want to revisit our policy, but not on this instance, and ping authors of OLM-RS crate. And I don't know if there are other affected crates, but.
Rust web server, but it has no dependencies.
Okay.
No, nothing depends on it.
Should at least ping them.
Yeah.
I have an account on the GNOME GitLab. I will go file an issue on that crate.
Great. So action item, Josh to file issue, and someone to leave a comment summarizing this. Who?
I can do that.
Oh, awesome. Put that in the, Mark, you weren't here for this, but we have a new action item document, which you can see right here, where we're recording action items.
Great.
So that we don't have to scrape them out. Okay. Great. I think we're done. Thanks, everyone. We'll go through the rest of these next time. We did really good today. Oh, final reminder, design meeting tomorrow to go over the plans. Ciao.
Meta design meeting, right?
Meta design
All
meeting,
right.
scheduling meeting. Yep.
Awesome.
Oh.
Bye.
Bye.